Yeah, it was extremely cold. It's still kind of cold right now.
Oh,
Yeah.
Nash Severe Weather Twitter account said to cover your plants tonight.
Thank you guys for the interlude. It was really cold today, but I'm back, and I would like to introduce Elisheba Israel Mosrick. She is a muralist and international award-winning tattoo artist. She is also a founding member and director of the Jefferson Street Art Crawl. In 2011, she opened One Drop Ink Tattoo Parlor and Gallery on Jefferson Street, I believe. And many of you in Nashville know Slim and Husky's delicious pizza in the Buchanan Arts District. And over the weekend, Elisheba created this mural in partnership with Creative Girls Rock, which is an amazing nonprofit here in Nashville. And this was the result of another Metro Arts Thrive Award. And as you can see, it is incredible. And this is another picture of the mural, a little close up. And it's already getting a tremendous positive community response.
Thank you. It was great.
And as a Thrive recipient last April, Elisheba released a coloring book titled Notable Nashville with illustrated scenes of Nashville featuring historically marginalized people. And you can download that on her website as well. And this is the front and back cover, and it's really beautiful. And for those of you who are Nashville natives, you'll recognize a lot of favorite spots. In all of her work, Elisheba brings voice and representation to the marginalized, defines and connects our culture to the present, and highlights history that may be otherwise hidden. Next, I would like to introduce Pam Marlene Taylor. Pam is a fiber artist and curator, and you can currently see the exhibit above, spoiler alert, at Oz Arts in Nashville. And this exhibit remembers those lost to COVID-19 while highlighting the inequalities exhibited in medical treatment for women, people of color, LGBTQIA+ individuals, and those in poverty. Pam also did an excellent interview on Oz Art's podcast, Brave New Art, and I highly recommend giving that a listen. And I think Christine will put that in the chat. And Pam's April 2020 Thrive project was the Stay Home Gallery. It's an online gallery featuring work by women and non-binary artists around the world during the pandemic. And Pam's Thrive project actually later became a brick and mortar contemporary art gallery and artist residency for women and non-binary artists, as well as their families, for which Pam is now the gallery and residency director. And this is just some other examples of Pam's work. This is a series entitled Women as Warp, which explores the unseen and unappreciated work of women. And this series is open for commissions, and you can see more samples of the art you're looking at now, as well as more from this series on Pam's website. And lastly, on top of all of these things, Pam is also currently in graduate school studying clinical mental health counseling and thanatology.
Thank you.
Next, I am excited to introduce to you Taria Person. They are a Nashville native and an alumnus of the University of Tennessee in Knoxville, where they received dual Bachelor of Art degrees in English with a focus on creative writing and poetry, as well as Africana studies. They are a multidisciplinary, interdisciplinary artist, and their disciplines include acting, playwriting, stage management, spoken word, poetry, performance art, teaching artistry, and visual art. Taria's Thrive project was a folktale entitled Storm, a hip hop exploration of the storms of 2020, which she narrated, and that will be shared in the chat as well. All of Taria's work shown today is made out of recycled materials. Among their roles as a creative person, they also work with Turnip Green Creative Reuse in Nashville, Tennessee as a teaching artist, helping with sustainability. Taria is also the author of a book of poetry titled Rainbow Elephant, which you can purchase from their website. They were commissioned by the Emily Hall Tremaine Foundation to write their second book at the summit. And they are an annual Young Writers Workshop instructor for the University of Tennessee in Knoxville and Humanities Tennessee. And lastly, I would like to share a video clip of one of their performances. And this one is entitled Feel Good.
Yeah, it's the realest. Feel good. Feel, don't this beat make you feel good? Deep breath and it feels good. From your chest and it feels good. No stress, just feel good. Don't this beat make
I want him to know that I don't want to come out.
Okay,
Because I
breath
can't
and
manipulate.
it feels good. From your chest and it feels good. No stress, just feel good.
Is there any way you can type in the chat box and just say, oh, when it, nice.
Let's just.
Because they're going to ask for introductions
Okay,
and
come here, give it
shit.
to me. Oh, sorry.
All right, everybody. Thank you guys so much for allowing me to share your work. It's just so impressive across the board what you all have accomplished this year. And I would love to hear from all of you if anything changed about your artistic practice this year, and if so, what?
Well, for me, I'll jump in first. My artistic practice changed from just kind of focusing on the tattooing part of what I do and trying to really build up more of the public art, and which is more of a passion project for myself. Tattoos, they pay the bills, they sell, they get stuff done. But I have a lot of messages for, the community as a whole, and being able to, get Thrive grants and funding to be able to make these messages that don't just walk around with one person, but they are there for the whole community, was a big change in my regular kind of artistic process.
Well, I know for myself, like I had to really apply all the things that I teach my students. I'm always like, we can take whatever's around us and create beautiful art, right? And I was like, wow, I actually have to apply this. I'm high risk. A lot of people in my family are high risk. And I was like, it is really my duty to make sure we're like safe. And so for me, I had to make sure that I'm a multidisciplinary artist. I was like, how can we make this virtual? How can we like do this in a safe way to still engage with the community? And also not spend a lot of money to like create beautiful artwork to inspire people. So mine was just like really, already like virtual, but like stepping out there just a bit more and just like, okay, let me cut this Topo Chico box up real quick.
Yeah, my changes in the last year started with a really big break from creating anything. I think it's really hard to create in crisis, and I don't think you should expect that you can. So at the beginning of all of this, I just spent a lot of time just trying to work on my life and, make sure that we had a place to live and eat food. And then once that stuff settled, the creativity was able to come back. And in my own art practice, I think in this last year, I let myself just make without a plan for the first time, and started trusting my instincts for the first time. And then as a curator, my love for curation has always been getting to provide artists with opportunities. And artists needed really different opportunities in the last year than before. And so for myself, I live in an apartment and I don't have, my own yard or anything like that to get to have wide open spaces during the pandemic. And so through Stay Home Gallery, first, the goal was just to get to provide exhibition opportunities that were safe and online. And then it turned into getting to provide a physical space with land that you could go and be in safely, which is such a rare thing in the city in the last year. And so, yeah, just a lot of shifting, trusting myself more, and providing more physical needs for artists.
I guess this next question is for Taria, anyone who wants to jump in. As an artist, how do you see your role in the community? I know you've mentioned your students. Does it extend beyond that?
Oh, yeah. So my role in the community, how do I see myself? I definitely feel like my role is to reflect back to the community. We can do it. You can do it. There's so many, you know, like, especially with the pandemic that was going on, there's so much tragedy, there's so much negativity. But with all of that, there's always the alternative. And I think that that's my role. Like we just heard a little bit of my song, Feel Good. It's to remind us that, you know, we can take a moment to breathe and we can feel good and we can uplift. My role is to remind artists that we don't always have to like go with the flow of what they're telling us that art should be. We can definitely sit here and say, hey, my mission is to uplift myself and to uplift others as well. And I know that, you know, somebody that struggles with mental health, I usually am scared to like talk about stuff like that, but I know it's really important for me to like shift myself and balance myself and center myself. So I want to make sure that my art basically shows that, so that people have reminders that they can do this too. And that when we all shift ourselves and make ourselves, you know, better and reach our next level of greatness, that goes out into our community, and our community does that as well. And then we get to flourish together, right? So I feel like my role is to do that. And like we said about teaching, most definitely to teach and to share. I've had so many mentors, so many people in my family, you know, like just friends, loved ones that have poured into me. And that's why I am, that's why I am where I am and where I've gotten, because I have people that have like given resources, have definitely given those pushes. And so my role is to definitely give back. Those people, they don't want monetary anything from me. They just want me to be the example, to be a leader. I know I try to like argue with my mentors all the time. I'm not an activist. And they're like, yes, you are. Unorthodox, but you definitely are. And so my role is to definitely show people that it doesn't matter how you look, doesn't matter where you come from. We all have something to share. We all have something to give. We tap into something that's a lot bigger than us. So our purpose in life, figure out what that is, you know, and I'm here to just remind you that you can do it. Don't stop. My great grandmother, she's still alive, and she's on this this talk right now. She told me, and I want to pour this back out. She's like, don't give up. So I just want to like encourage you, never give up. It may get hard, it may get tough, but like that woman, she is powerful. She is like, she's been a part of, like, she's been on plantations, raising family, like siblings and all that stuff. And like, I'm here, I'm her great grand. She has a great grand now. So just keep it up. You got it.
That's beautiful. I don't know if anybody else has anything to add.
I can jump in on this, and I feel like my role, I've been in North Nashville with my business now for 10 years. And I feel like my role is to stay consistent and to keep pushing out consistent messages and having those uncomfortable conversations with people through my artwork and talking with them about my artwork and being very unapologetic about it. And at the same time, very much welcoming people into these difficult conversations. And as I've seen Jefferson Street in the North Nashville area continuously, you know, gentrified over this last decade, and how just since the tornado in March 3rd, the entire area is drastically, you know, different place. And there are only a couple of kind of footholds of the past kind of art and creativity that made the neighborhood attractive still there. I just want to make sure that I am being consistent and purposeful in what art I put out there and what message I am sending, and to be that kind of anchor for the neighborhood to work towards some sort of permanent position in the area for the artists who have a historical connection to the North Nashville community. And as you know, they get pushed out, I want them to still be able to come in and show their work and be accessible to creating things in the community, so that the past is remembered and, you know, revered and recognized, and so that the people wherever they may go will be able to show their art and their love for North Nashville and have a home to come back to, even when they don't have a place in it anymore. So I just feel like being consistent and having those uncomfortable conversations about gentrification, about the vultures who come through the neighborhood, about why we're in this place now, about why 37208 has the highest incarceration rate in the country. Those kind of conversations, how we got there, is super important for me as a part of my role in the community.
Alicia, you are all of those things. Like, you are such an anchor in that community. I see my role as just like a matchmaker. I just really like maybe like I'm like a dating app for artists and arts administrators or something. I just really love to like meet someone and like learn their goals and then be like, I have 5 people I can connect you to that will help you achieve these goals, and I will send you an email, or we will all go get coffee, or yeah. So if you have goals and you want to tell them to me, you can send me an Instagram message or a email, and I will be happy to talk to you about them and connect you to someone that has a similar goal or could help get you to the next step.
I'll say that I can totally vouch for that with Pam, because I met her not too long before the pandemic and everything happened in like November or something, or December of 2019. And instantly, you know, she invited me out to the curatorial thing that she used to have, a meetup. And I was able to meet so many people through her connections that have allowed me to be able to do more and have more access to people to be able to create more public art. So definitely, if you have goals and you need somebody who is connected, Pam is super perfect to help you out on that.
Thank you.
That's a great segue. So Pam, what do you see? What are the qualities that makes the Nashville art community special?
So like, we've had a rough year everywhere, but I feel like in Nashville, we've had a really rough year. It's just like so many bad things happened. And so I have lots of family that lives outside of Nashville, and they're all always like, man, like that city can't catch a break. And my partner and I are trying to buy a house in Nashville right now, which is a whole other thing. But we're trying to buy a house in Nashville right now. And my parents keep being like, why? Like, why are you going to stay in Nashville? Like, it's expensive. And it seems like there's always something like really big happening there. And it's the art community. Like, I don't want to leave this community. I think that it is a really, really unique ecosystem that we have here, that is built on the spirit of collaboration and generosity. And I think you can see that through a lot of examples in the last year. One was that all the galleries got together and they created a virtual art crawl that was probably really hard to make and didn't make them money. And they were sharing their platforms and they were sharing their audiences. And, you know, that may not have met the goals that like opening up for art crawls used to meet for them. But I think for the artists, it showed us like the galleries aren't leaving. They're still here. They're willing to work together. and, put aside competition and just, stand together and say, like, we're still here. And for every crisis that's happened in the last year, there's been such a huge response, both from artists and from arts organizations. So the arts organizations have shown up every time with grants, and the artists have shown up every time with benefit sales. I think all of us and so many artists in Nashville have donated art all year to raise money for different things, but also received money back from these same places. And there were times during the last year that, I don't know how we would have made it without the Nashville art community. And then not even just financially, but people showing up, people on this call. I'm also high risk, giving me a call and saying, hey, I know you're not going out right now. I'm at the store near your house. What do you need? Do you need art supplies? Do you need food? I think it's a really tight-knit community that is not just really close, but also really willing to grow and like accept new members in all the time. And I just think it's a really special environment here.
I think it's beautiful that like all the artists that I run into in Nashville, we're always like, go, go, go. It's like this constant need to like let each other know, like, yes, I'm glad that you're thriving. It's important to me that you're thriving. When you thrive, I thrive. When I thrive, you thrive. So it's just like this connection. We don't even have to like know each other. It's just like, oh, you're an artist? And it's like we automatically become community. So I think that's beautiful about Nashville. Like you said, Pam, it's like, I mean, there's always going to be competition, like with some communities and stuff like that. But for the most part, a lot of people in our community, even when there is competition, they'll put it down for us to all come together in order to like do some beautiful things, which I think this pandemic and the storms and everything has definitely shown us and showed us that we can do much more as well. So, yeah.
And I'll just say that is like the sign of what a healthy community should look like. There's enough out here for everybody. We can literally all win, and we can win in not only the art community, but at the community as a whole. And the artists here are so important and need to be supported so that they can continue to do the bringing together of people so that we can all start making things work, whether it be, responding to a crisis or that daily day-to-day work of connecting people so that we can start, making the city a actual better place and not just grow into kind of another city. That is definitely one thing we need to really consider and focus on when it comes to funding artists in Nashville and just how much they do that, is not properly funded so they can stay here and they can afford to stay here and continue to create. And we really have to, as a wider community, start recognizing and understanding that artists are skilled laborers and they need consistent and continuous funding so that they can continue to do this work, this good work that they do every day.
Alicia, you've touched on this a little bit already, but what is your vision for Nashville's arts and culture scene on the whole?
My vision is to really work with these major institutions and policymakers to make up white paper, a percent for art program, so that we can fund local artists and make sure they are not ignored in this transition into big city life. And if we're going to pretend to be a big city, then we need to look at the arts the same way as major metropolitan areas like New York and Seattle, who have percent for art programs focused on funding properly, artists in the city. And Metro Arts is, working with a kind of a legislature that doesn't necessarily understand the importance of arts in our ecosystem and how it works. So we really have to, as an art community, push back against that and let them understand that everything they see is art, and everything that makes Nashville came from an artist's mind, and that those people need to be paid properly, like an electrician or a plumber. And representation is needed in these meetings and in these things to make that happen. And Metro Arts is working, very hard on providing that funding. And just from the newer art calls I've been seeing recently, the value of what they're able to pay has gone up, which is awesome and is very much needed, because I know that when artists come in from outside of the city, they're paid prices for that are very much very good, and we don't have those for the local artists. But now Metro Arts, they're starting to allocate more funds focused to local artists, and I'm super excited about what that will entail for places in this city that need it. And my particular goal and legacy, focused on North Nashville, is to make a permanent space there for those who get pushed out. And I talked about this a little bit earlier. If we don't own anything, if we don't own the land, if we don't own a space and are able to consistently, upkeep it and keep programming funded, then we won't be able to stay in the city. I'm working on a nonprofit right now, which I'm using the Jefferson Street Art Crawl and my experiences working with that, and turning it into a nonprofit in order to try to secure funding to have a permanent space. And I think that that is something that needs to be done in each neighborhood in Nashville, in each section, to have a permanent art space for those local artists, whether they still live there or not, to be able to come in, create art, show art, have programming. I mean, if we had a place in each neighborhood that had a small stock of art supplies for those who can't afford it, to people to be able to come in and get a few things they need to create, and a place for them to show without having so much, gallery knowledge to be able to be on that level. But it's just to create and foster that sense of togetherness and that sense of art in the community, is to have a community space dedicated to that art, owned by and ran by local artists and arts administrators who want to see the community as a whole benefit from having art in their daily lives, being able to have a place to come and create. I mean, I feel like so many people don't have outlets and don't have the abilities for, creating that art on their own or in their home or situation. And then there are just so many people. We used to do portfolio days in the Jefferson Street Art Crawl, where we would just invite anybody to come out with their art and get critiques about it and things they need to do to get better. And just from that, I learned that so many people just have zero idea, and they need to be taught it, and they don't know where to look. And if they have a resource in the community that they can always come to get those life drawing classes or critiques and things like that, and also be able to show their work for the first time and get feedback from people so that they can know how to improve if they want to move up to art as a professional career. So that's kind of my goal and legacy to leave in Nashville, is some permanent spots for that stuff to happen.
Yes.
Mic drop. Yeah, that's great. Does anybody have anything to add?
All I want to do is support Alicia's vision for Nashville. I don't have anything else to add.
Yeah, I definitely second everything that Alicia has said. I feel like ownership is really important. I feel like there's a lot of situations, systemically, that make it hard for certain people to get that ownership. But I feel like I'm the type of person that's always like, okay, once again, what do we have that we can utilize around us to get to where we need to go? So I feel like the goal for me is to get ownership. But right now, I feel like my thing is to make sure that young folk know that they can be published. Some people, they have no idea that they can have their own book. It was really important for me to self-publish my first book, to be like, I did this. I had mentors that pushed me to do that. And I was like, why are they wanting me to do this so bad? And it's so that I can give skills like that back. Like Alicia said, this is a skilled labor, right? So it's important for me to be able to say, okay, like create stuff like production companies and, create stuff like publishing, make it affordable, to remind people that, yes, we want permanent stuff in our community, like permanent places where we can like go. There are places right now that we can, until we like continue to develop and build that up, go to Turnham Green, right? You can donate whatever you have. I see so many artists is like, I don't have anything. You can donate a smile today. You can donate some positive energy today and get you a canvas, get you some paint, get you some brushes. There are resources. And sometimes, it may be hard for us to like ask. You're only probably gonna get a yes or a no. And so sometimes it's just to remind, people that there are a lot of yeses out there in our community. You can go out there and get stuff right now that's affordable. And you can reach out, like Pam said, you can reach out to the artists. You can reach out to me too. If I have some resources, if I have something that you can benefit from, I'm definitely going to share. I'm definitely going to tell you, and I'm going to make myself available, so just reach out. Let's work together.
Yeah, I think it's rare. I mean, I guess pre-pandemic, it was rare to ever hear of someone getting turned down for like a, hey, can I bring you a cup of coffee and pick your brain? And maybe that's a Zoom call now, but eventually it'll be coffee again. And everyone loves to do that. People love to be asked advice. So if you are wanting to connect with artists or curators or publishers or something, the worst thing that can happen is they say no, but just asking gets you a lot of places.
Pam, what do you think artists in the community need right now?
I'm gonna get on my soapbox and tell you. I talked about, how vibrant and generous the art community is, of artists and gallery owners and administrators and all of that. But there's definitely like a third part of that is not missing in Nashville, but needs to grow so much. And that's art collectors, purchasers, people to buy the books of poetry and buy the paintings and buy the weavings. So yeah, when people ask me like, what can I do to support the art community? I'm like, buy the art. You have to buy the art. Like that is the best thing you could do, because that is putting money like directly in the pocket of the artist. And like, look at what has happened from these Thrive grants that, put money in the pocket of artists. My own project was just an Instagram account. And with this like small round of funding, it was the exact like push it needed to become now a physical space that artists can go and stay for a week. And that happened because I was given money. And when you buy art, it's like a double bonus, because not only are you supporting the artists, but you get art back. You get to have something for it. So like no one loses. And I think as artists, our role in boosting the art collector community here is just education. I think a lot of people think that they can't collect art. And these pieces behind me are not mine. These are pieces that I bought, and people don't realize that you can do payment plans. The first piece of art I bought, I paid off over many, many months in like $25 installments. And almost every gallery in Nashville offers payment plans. Most artists I know are willing to talk about a payment plan. And you may think like, well, $25 doesn't do anything, but $25 or $50 in the pocket of an artist maybe buys them supplies to make another piece of art, and that piece sells for $500. and artists are great investors. So, you know, you give a little bit and they will use that to create more for themselves. And so yeah, that's what I think that the community needs more than anything, is that we are growing so much, and we have more artists moving here every day and creating amazing work, but we don't have people that are supporting that by actually purchasing that work as much as we need to. So if you are an art collector, encourage your friends to be art collectors. If you've never bought a piece of art, make that your goal this year. If you're an artist, start educating people that anyone can buy art. That's all.
I would also say stream, because there's a lot of artists too that, you know, don't necessarily sell their art, but they want it to be viewed. They want it to be witnessed. So witness and experience artists, you know, artwork. The Thrive Grant allowed for me to tell a piece of my great grandmother's like story. She's a twin. So I have my great grandmother, Velma Young. Hey, grandmama. And also her twin, my Aunt Thelma. And I saw a question in the chat. Somebody was like, how old was she? Well, this was like various parts of her life, you know, growing up, you know, in Nashville. But like, definitely, Thrive allowed for me to like tell my family history, you know, and it was really important for me to do so, you know, to let my grandmother know that all of these experiences you had, they made look like it was like, it definitely was a lot. It's definitely, you know, I can't even imagine, but that's all I have, you know, and so I'm gonna sit at her feet right now. She's still alive. Flowers for the living, everybody. I'm gonna sit at her feet and I'm gonna make sure that, you know, I hear stories. My grandmama is sitting right beside her daughter, my grandmother, you know, my mother's mother. And, you know, same thing with her. There's so many stories, there's so much history, and there's so much that we can learn from each other's stories. And Thrive allowed for me to do that, you know, just to, and to not just tell my family story, but to also delve into like folklore and to remind people about those stories and those scenarios that allow for people to overcome adversity. So Thrive, pay artists for sure, because they will, we will use the money for good. We will use the money in order to definitely create artwork that's going to impact ourselves, our community, and hopefully lives way beyond us.
This is a question for Alishba. What do you see as the systemic issues facing artists today? And you've touched on this a little bit with artists as workers, and I would just like you to expand on that.
Yeah, so the systemic issues are societal issues, and the fact that we do not value art as we should. And that comes down to education, mainstream kind of media representation of what an artist should do, and the mess about, you know, struggling, starving artists and how that must be normal, or how if you love something, you must just be able to give it away for free, and not taking into consideration the time, the education, the energy, and the fact that you have a life and bills to pay as well. So dispelling those myths around artists and changing what that means here and bringing importance to art is really like huge, and one of the biggest issues I think we face. Because if people spent the same amount of money on local arts and artisans things, then they would have no need to consumerism, mass produce stuff. There are artisans and artists who make clothes, who make shoes, who make, you know, covers for your couch, who make, you know, anything that you would go and buy from a big box retailer. You can find an artist making it awesome and more durable and long lasting than if you went and got it from a store. And if we started looking at art and artisans in that way and using them to make everyday kind of purchases that we make in our homes or in our daily lives, then people, I think, would start to correlate that, okay, art is this thing and not just, a thing I can hang on the wall that they must love to do. So, and I think that also goes back to how artists create art now, because artists tend to create art that they think will sell rather than art that they need to or want to make. And they keep those kind of pieces private, because when they go on a social media site or something and there's a picture of a famous person with some paint, they're like, oh, that's going to sell, so let me make a version of this famous person to sell, when that's not necessarily what they want it to do. But they're doing it for sales, for likes, for what looks like sustainability. And that ends up just making us factories and taking away the goals we should have as artists for creating art that creates a place, that creates change, that sparks inspiration and ideas. So making it so that people start looking at new art, unique art, or art that's not, just the same kind of things over and over again, is a societal issue that we need to overcome, so that people can start purchasing unique and brave art that's out there, that's out of the box, and supporting those projects. And even if it's something they don't have to necessarily have in their home, because I think a lot of people think that if you buy art that it has to hang in your home, and that takes away a lot of options, because it's more decoration in that way. And why we need to always have something that's just a pretty picture up is another thing we need to work on, because I mean, it may be a little uncomfortable, but that little reminder in your home, if there's a piece up about something that's a uncomfortable message in your home or in your garden or wherever, that may just be that reminder for you for the day to watch how you interact with the world. And so just changing those societal dynamics on how we look at art and how we view art and what it means, to have art up is not just a pretty picture, is a giant issue that is, I don't even know exactly how to end it. I think it really needs mass media inundation, because when things become popular and they go viral or whatever, those things affect society and affect how we think. And something that went viral years ago, like Bye Felicia, is still, a part of the fabric of our society now. It may be offhanded, it may not be as much as it was, but Bye Felicia is now forever ingrained in a conversation or things that we do. So if there was like a mass way to kind of virally inundate, and I feel like major corporations, tech companies, and things like that would have to be a part of a conversation to do that, because they control what we see, they control how we think, because the algorithms and the things they put out there are.
Oh no, she's frozen, I think.
Frozen.
All right. Well, this is the
And
world.
to turn a book and to turn a profit, then that could make a big change in society.
Alicia, but you froze for a minute. Will you go back 30 seconds?
Okay. Did I talk about the corporations yet?
Yep, but then right when you were starting, that's when you froze.
Okay, so I was saying that major tech corporations and these social media companies need to be involved in this kind of mass inundation of the change of how art is perceived in this society. They control what we see. They control how people react using algorithms and data, and their goal is to turn a profit. And not to actually make a change. But if we start pressuring and getting these companies involved to change how art is perceived by promoting and funding the ability to get that message out there to their billions of subscribers worldwide, then we can change societally how people, perceive art and its value and its worth, and really start highlighting unique art and art that's not just a copy just to make, just to sell. And we really got to get away from that as a society in order to move art forward at all. Otherwise, we'll all just be copying things because we want to sell it and make art our everyday living because we have that desire to create, but not necessarily a way to create what we really want to say because we cannot afford to do so.
Well, this question is for Taria. What advice would you give artists just starting out, and anyone else who wants to hop in after her too?
Oh, okay. What advice would I give artists just starting out? For sure, definitely speak from your heart. You know, come from your heart. Be true, be honest, be real, very authentic. Be yourself. I know you may hear that a lot, but it's very much so important. We all are part of a larger picture, a larger place, a larger being. So it is important for us all to show up as ourselves and to very much go after who that person is. Find out who you are each moment of the day. Never stop learning, always learn. Be comfortable with learning. Be comfortable with being uncomfortable, like really like work through and maneuver through that. Be resilient and adaptable. Remember that you got it. Remember to share and to pass it on. It's kind of like a positive wildfire where you spark inspiration in one person and it just keep on going. Like I said, my great grandmother, the fruits of her labor, I'm here, you know, and she has motivated me like growing up. And now I get to motivate like people like my students and my niece. So just see how you can impact the world. Be very intentional, have purpose, know why you're doing something, be able to communicate to it, be able to talk about it, why you're doing it, how you're doing it. Surround yourself with your tribe. Those are the people that are going to reflect back to you that you are blessed, that you are highly favored, because you are, even when you feel like you're not. To remind you that you're intelligent, even when you feel like you're not. Put yourself around those people that are going to believe in you and to remind you to believe in yourself, because that's really important. Be courageous. You got this. The things I get scared of, I try to create something to work in that space. Like I said, like I'm scared to talk about mental health. I don't want to be called like you're crazy. So okay, let's drop stigmas. Figure out ways to definitely, you know, jump in the face of those things you see you're scared of. Yeah. And I guess the last thing I'll end on is have fun. Have fun.
That was great advice. I needed that.
Thank you. You're welcome.
I'll jump in with trust that if you keep showing up and you keep making, you will figure out that thing you're trying to figure out. I spent like a lot of years not knowing what kind of artist I was, and or what I wanted to say or what I wanted to make or who I was making it for or what I just felt like I was floating in this world of art and had no idea of like what direction I was going in. And I think so every artist either is in that or has felt that for like years of their life. And if you just keep showing up, like training for a marathon or something, not that I've ever done that, but I assume that training for a marathon, you have to keep showing up and then you get a little better every time and you eventually can do it. And I think art is like that if you just keep trying and keep giving time to your practice, like you will work the kinks out and you will start to understand yourself better. And then one day, years later, you will look back and you'll be like, oh, I can see the thread between my work and I understand how I got to the place I am. But it's so hard in the beginning to see that because you don't have years of knowing yourself as an artist yet. and it'll happen, and just trust that it will come.
I completely agree with what both of them said. And it is very difficult to see the future when you're living in this moment, when you have all this stuff around you that you're also dealing with aside from art, you know, and just trying to stay focused and not necessarily putting blinders on, but being selective about what you take in from the outside world and then put it back out. Like I know me, I really had for a minute, I had to get off of Instagram. I had to get off of social media because it seemed like people were making progress on different things faster than me. And I felt like I was stuck in this place trying to continue to grow my tattooing career, but also really wanting to get back to kind of a personal passion of creating art in a way that was outside of that. And just trying to self-critique and push out kind of those outside noises to focus on what I knew was my final goal. And it's hard to do. It's definitely hard to do. So definitely just taking a minute and thinking that you have this future ahead. And even if you can't necessarily see the entire path in like this clear way, knowing what your goal is and kind of staying focused on that goal is so helpful for any artist who wants to grow and not just kind of stay in this one lane that they're in.
Well, that is all from me. And I think our participants here have some questions. So I'm just going to scan through the chat. And this has been terrific. I feel super inspired by the three of you. And I really am grateful for you lending your time and experience to this project. Okay, so this one is from Ashley Mintz for Alicia. What do you think is the best way to explain the importance of paying artists to someone who is trying to get an artist to do something for them for little or no pay? Do you think it's even worth trying to explain?
So I take it a point to explain to people. But a lot of times we forget how deeply kind of ingrained the idea of a starving artist is and how they will just take anything to get their name out. How deeply that's ingrained. I mean, and how many people really feel that way and feel like an artist has it easy if they can do that as a job while they work hard. It's basically saying that their work is not as hard or as difficult as what they do. So in those cases, I tell them to do it themselves. If they feel like they don't need to pay me to do it, then they can figure out how to paint it themselves, because obviously they know how to do it since it's so easy. So I just tell them, do you do this to your electrician? Do you do this to your plumber? Do you tell your mortgage guy that you're not going to pay the mortgage this month because, this house was just whatever, you just give them real world situations to have them think back and be like, you know what? Okay. And if they don't, again, they can go do it themselves. So, and if I really try to encourage artists, but a lot of artists want the funds. And so they'll take less than what they deserve for a project. And it's also a kind of an artist community thing. We really have to work together to let artists know, hey, you don't have to take this. And I know it seems like you need these funds right now. Here are some other options to get you funding you need, and have that as kind of a resource instead of you giving away things for free. Because just like with gloves and paper towels and everything that we need, when the prices went up, they complained, but they paid them. So, once they see how needed you are and how you are necessary and imperative to what they have, then they will pay and they will get what they paid for. So if they want to be a little cheaper and there's, a young college student or something that's just working on building their portfolio, then they have to expect that they're not necessarily going to get that high level professional art that they came to you for in the first place. So just people understanding. And I really think that artists themselves, I hate to say it, like kind of need a union, or at least some kind of guidelines as a whole, so that it can get spread out to both artists and art collectors or art patrons who want something. Be like, don't expect to pay an artist less than this, when you're in these kind of situations, to give kind of a basic guidelines of how to approach artists about art, and just how to be respectful. We don't come to McDonald's and tell you how to flip your fries. So you, in the same way, shouldn't come to an artist and try to, lowball them for the very hard work that it takes to do something. I love doing murals, but after climbing up and down ladders for 3 days in a row, you're going to pay me what I require to make this happen, because otherwise it would not look the way that it does, because you're paying for my experience, you're paying for my time, you're paying for my knowledge and my technical skill. And those things all have value.
This is a question for everyone from Andres, and is, how can galleries, curators, opportunity creators create opportunities for diversity and inclusion in their process, intentionally helping develop an artist's career and offering opportunities for growth?
I think to create opportunities that are inclusive, you have to do that on purpose and intentionally, and with that goal in mind. And I think people assume that if they create an opportunity that's open to all people, that all people will come. But that is not necessarily the case. And I think that if you want to serve a particular community, you need to be involved in that community. And you can't represent something that you don't know anything about, and you shouldn't try to. And I think that if you want to create specific opportunities for people, you have to make sure that those opportunities are right in front of them and accessible to them, and that they understand that they are not just allowed to participate, but that you would be honored for their participation. I don't know if that answers the question, but I just think it doesn't happen by accident.
I agree with that as well. It doesn't happen by accident. I always say, like, a lot of people that I am close with, they always remind me to just research. Like, there's so many people that are already doing so many different things, that are working with communities already. Go to those communities, converse with those people, see what it is that they need. Sometimes before even creating opportunities, get them included. And I feel like that has definitely been beneficial to me, just being able to converse, share space with people, instead of trying to figure out oh, this is what you need, or this is what I think you need, right? And that goes to artists too. Don't think that you think you know what we need. Come have conversations with us and actually see what it is that we need.
I can say that things like applications, I've noticed, really scare some people, because they don't know what to write and they don't know what to submit. And the fear of kind of rejection and what that means is a big fear about it. It might be good to maybe set up dates in a community that you want to reach out to people and invite people to come out live to talk in person, rather than just doing online or paper kind of applications. And that might help people to see you in person, to talk to you in person, and to have that kind of personable relationship and conversation. And you can really find out more, I think, about an artist and what they want to do when you kind of talk to them in person. So, and that was just something that I learned because somebody I know was talking about grants that were out there, and the people weren't filling out the applications. They were looking for people and they just weren't filling them out because of all kind of anxieties and things around an application process. And also it's hard for artists to talk about their art in written form. Even I had all kind of trouble writing my artistic statement, which you would not necessarily know from me talking in person. But when I can just talk, it's easier than me trying to write it down. So, and also if you have in-person things, they can be more comfortable once they meet you, talk to you. The place that you use to meet could also make it more comfortable for artists to want to, engage, show you their work, and get more personable. And again, asking them to bring their unique and original art is another thing that I think you should put out there, because again, most people are running off of what they think will sell and what they think people want to see, and somehow encouraging them to think outside the box would be really great to do to get people in.
Right. Okay. We have a time for a couple more questions. And this next one is from Kim. What books or resources have you read to dispel myths about artists that you may have internalized? Kim is reading Real Artists Don't Starve.
That's a tough question. I would say, I don't know if I can think of any books, but I definitely listen to a lot of artist podcasts. And I think that hearing artists tell their stories is really encouraging. And you hear them having the same struggles you have, and then you hear all their successes. And I think it can help you to be like, okay, cool. I may be in this place now, but I may be in that place later on. So yeah, I like to seek out artist interviews. My partner that I run Stay Home Gallery with has a podcast called Artist Mother Podcast, where she interviews artists that are also mothers. And those stories, even though I'm not a mother, are really, really inspirational and help me remember that, successes take time.
I'll say I would encourage artists to look at businesses and business structures and business coaches so that they just have a better idea of what they should be paid, things they should be concerned about from a business standpoint of their art as a business. People like Gary Vaynerchuk, his podcast and just the things that he talks about on intercepting and talking with people and how to just handle yourself in a business a business way with people is something that we all need to know, because we'll think of a number and then we'll go to like a gallery and we'll see like a number on the wall and we'll be like, well, what makes this worth this? And if you don't know how to go back and look up research or look up, values and how things are done, how things sell, what are your costs, and just the business aspects of it so that you can value your work properly, then, you're just going to kind of make up a number. And in the end, when you look back at everything you've used and time and energy, by the time you subtract everything, you haven't made any profit. So listening to business podcasts, reading business books, and then taking the info from that and, twisting it into your artistic practice and your artistic work is, I think, a great resource for any artist.
I definitely agree with both what Alicia and Pam have said. There are two books that I always go back to. I had two mentors pass them down to me. It's just The Outsider from Audre Lorde. And then there's another book that I always like pick up, what successful people know or think about, like leadership. And it's just like stuff like that. It's not necessarily about art, but it just reminds me about personal value. And when I get my personal values together, it reminds me to also think about my artistic value. Like, okay, so if I know my worth and I know my value, then I can also put that into my art. I could put that into my practice. I could put that into my business, put that into my classrooms and every facet of my life. Right. So I also, I would say not to just look at artists and what they're saying, just like Alicia was saying, definitely look into businesses, but also look at motivational speakers maybe that talk about different careers, right? I have heard so many people in different fields that have like just motivated me. And I'm like, wow, I could apply that. Like sales and marketing. I'm in sales and marketing. I'll take that and I'll apply it to what I'm doing right here in art. So just try to figure out ways that you can like blend all that together. It's interwoven, like make it work together.
All right, everyone. I think this is our last question. And this one comes from Sarah. Where and how did you all find your art mentors?
I feel like my first kind of experience with an art mentor will be my high school art teacher, and just he was a working artist and just taught high school art, and him talking to me and helping to foster my talent really was kind of the stumble upon to get me into art as a professional career. And then once I got, into adulthood and life, I really just met a lot of different people by showing up and talking to people. And I didn't necessarily have a dedicated art mentor, but I met a lot of people who were awesome. And again, in this awesome Nashville community, who were very helpful in resources, in connections, in techniques, and just sharing art, and having the ability to just show up to things. Obviously, during COVID, it's a little different, but pre-COVID, and even just participating in Zooms like this is a great way to just connect to people and meet people who could be a mentor or be anything that you might need in your career as an artist or in your personal time as an artist. Just showing up and speaking out and making sure people, you get people's info and you follow up with them. A lot of people, you get people's information and you don't necessarily follow up because we all have such busy lives, but just dropping a little note and just talking to people and communicating, I think is huge when it comes to just finding people to connect to.
I think I have gotten my mentors just by asking, will you give me advice? Will you be my mentor? And that started like pretty early on in college. I really wanted to learn glass blowing, which is something that I was very bad at. But there was this like glass blowing guy in the town I lived in, and I just went to his studio and said, will you teach me how to do this? And he said no at first, and then eventually he said yes. And then like there's lots of curators that I really admire, and I just tell them how much I admire them and look up to them and would love to learn from them, and I just ask for opportunities to get to do that. And then like even now, the next thing I want to learn how to make in my weaving is I want to learn how to start weaving burial shrouds. And so there's this woman I follow on Instagram who makes burial shrouds, and she's amazing. And so I have started showing up to things she's doing, and I've started going to these classes that she's teaching on Zoom so that she gets to know my name. And then I'm going to reach out and I'm going to say, I really want to learn how to do this from you. So I think just kind of putting yourself in front of someone that you want to learn from, and maybe just becoming friends first. You can have friends that are also mentors, and then just telling them, I want to learn from you and you inspire me and I want to soak some of that up from you, and people like that. So it usually works.
Yeah. When I ask questions like this, I'm like, wow, I'm so fortunate. I've had mentors like throughout my entire life. First, it began with family members. I had 2 family members who were professional artists. My Aunt Finney, who was a visual artist, sculptor. And when I was like 5, I just saw her build doll houses. I mean, life-size doll houses, like hands that you can sit in. And I was just like, wow, that's who I'm going to be when I grow up. My granny, and they're both ancestors now, but they still come to me when I get hit with the spirit, you know, the artistic muse. But my granny, she made Christian outfits and quilted and knitted and impacted Nashville and this entire nation with their art. I was like, wow. So just seeing them generate revenue, seeing them shift their mood through their gifts, they became my mentors just by doing exactly what they did, just being themselves and definitely utilizing their gifts in front of me. When I grew up, it was like teachers, of course, that were like, yo, did you know you could write? Did you know that you could perform? You know, you could have these talents, you can dance, you could do all these great things. And I'm like, what? You should go to college. I'm like, wow. And then when I got to University of Tennessee, go Vols, I actually have one of my mentors on here right now, Katie Childs. Hey, that was one of my professors. She was my academic advisor and has been my mentor since then. It's just reciprocated. It's energy, right? As hard as I want to make it, that's how hard she wants me to make it. And that's how much I want her to succeed and thrive as well. It's just like, it's an energy that bounces off of each other. So mentorship is not just like, oh, what can you learn from somebody? It's like also, what can you teach and what can you learn? Like, it's just a back and forth. And I've realized that throughout my career. And one last mentor, Ray of Sunshine, Knoxville's first Black poet laureate. That's a big deal. That's been my poetry mentor, my poetry mother. You know, just having these positive women in my life just has been so nurturing to me to make me feel like it's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to just go back out there. So definitely latch on to those people that, you know what I'm saying, that's going to let you know that, hey, you have what it takes and you can definitely keep going out there and get into the work. You deserve it and you're important, so do it.
All right, I think we're complete. I am so grateful that this community could gather today. I would like to thank Metro Arts, the Curb Center, Alex Furnett, Kim Kane, Christine Farwell, Janine Cristiano, Caroline, Emily, and of course, the 3 of you. I mean, this couldn't have happened without you. And I am so grateful to have gotten to know you. And I hope you all have such continued success as we move towards like a vibrant arts and culture space here in Nashville.
Thank you, Emily. Thank you for bringing us together.
Thank you. And I wish the same for you as well.
Yes. Oh, thank you.
Absolutely. Everybody's so wonderful. I love it. Yay.
Let's continue to thrive.